Welcome back to OT Sports. Today we got our Week 15 college basketball Power 40 rankings. If you guys are enjoying these videos, make sure you leave a like on it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Turn on the notifications. We got tons and tons of content around here. College basketball, college football, NFL, NBA, and MLB. Uh, most of them are weekly. There's occasions where some of them aren't, but for the most part, those are weekly. All of those now, right now, they're not just because some of them are not. It's not in season. But we have these coming out every single week. We're gonna try to make NBA a little more consistent now that things are clearing up a bit. So yeah, if you guys are enjoying these, make sure you show some support. Comment what you think about the rankings. But let's just hop right into the rankings. Starting off with number 40, I still have Northwestern in here. I did drop them down quite a bit, but I've seen a lot of people, they weren't getting very many votes in the AP poll after getting quite a bit after last week. They just had a really good win, 12-point win over Nebraska, a team I had at like 33 last week. And they went 2-0 this week, so I didn't feel the need to drop them out of the rankings entirely. Now, a lot of the teams ahead of them impressed me more than they did. They are still not too high in KenPom. They're 50th overall, 37th in defense, 37th in offense, 79th in defense. I still got them at 40 though. Boise State coming in here at number 39. They had a kind of a tough week this week. They're still very solid in KenPom, about the same range as Northwestern. 82nd in offense, 35th in defense. But like I said for Boise State, I believe they went 0-2 this past week. Yeah, they did. They lost on the road both games, but they didn't look great in either of them. They lost by 13 against Colorado State and then lost by 19 against Utah State, both being on the road. So there is that. Those are two very solid teams, two teams both inside the top 30. But Boise State is kind of falling behind the other Mountain West teams. Now, they're still in a pretty good spot in terms of conference standings, but that's just because there is currently a four-way tie for second place. All these teams are at 7-4. But Boise State, 16-8. They have the worst overall record. They're kind of starting to fall behind just a little bit in terms of the other five Mountain West teams competing for a tournament spot. If anyone were to get left out right now as of this point, it would be Boise State. But I still have them inside the top 40. I think as of right now they are a tournament team, but they are on the bubble. Texas A&M kind of came out of nowhere. They are back. They've had a very solid stretch of games here. I think they're on a 3-game win streak. Yes, they are. They have a win over Florida, Missouri, and then they blew out Tennessee by 16. That was really the big one that got them back inside the top 40. And they're 15-8. They're actually doing pretty good. They've gotten a lot worse on offense, but they've gotten a lot better on defense as well. They used to be all over the place, like top 10 in offense, and then not even top 70 in defense. Now they're sitting right in the middle now, 40th in offense, 42nd in defense. It's a very all-around, well-rounded team, and they're 39th overall. I have them here at 38. I think that's a fair ranking. They just got a huge win against Tennessee, and like I said last week, they also beat Florida, who is a couple spots above them. Clemson at 37, similarly to Texas A&M. They just got a huge win on the road against North Carolina. They win by 4. They also beat Syracuse on the road to follow that up. And Clemson has kind of come back from, nothing. I kind of wrote them off. I was very high on them to start out the season, but here they come, man. They're playing some good ball right now. So I got them at 37th. They're still very high in KenPom. 19th in offense, 70th in defense. Very solid team. Gonzaga with the big win. I've been saying they need it, and they couldn't have asked for a perfect time to do so. Kentucky has been struggling as of recently, and they continue to struggle. Kentucky now has lost 3 home games in a row, but Gonzaga goes into Rupp Arena and takes down Kentucky by 4. Um, and yeah, they looked pretty good in that game. The offense, they're still top. There's 19th in KenPom, and they got the huge win there that they needed desperately. 23rd in offense, 34th in defense. As of right now, Gonzaga is a tournament team, but if they still end up losing a couple games in conference, that could very well change. Florida at 35. They had one game this week and they beat Auburn by 16, so that was pretty impressive. So I gave them a little bit of a bump there. Florida's actually been doing pretty good as of recently, 16-7. They beat Kentucky, not this past week, but the week before that, if that makes sense. They went on the road and beat Kentucky. Now they did lose to Texas A&M last week. But then they had one game this week, and they beat Auburn by 16. It was at home, but still, that's a very good win. They're a very solid KenPom team, 12th in offense, 69th in defense, 26th overall in KenPom. And this Gators team is nothing to sleep on. I actually think they're looking to be a tournament team as right now. I think they should be. TCU at 34, they, similar to Florida, only had one game this week, but they lose instead of win, so they fall down quite a bit. They, I think, drop like 6 spots. They lose by 12 on the road against Iowa State. I think they're on a 2-game losing streak as of right now. So a rough start to the month, but they'll have a chance to bounce back tonight. Home game against West Virginia. They should win that. If they don't, we might start, maybe considering not having them in the top 40 at all. But so right now, I think they deserve to be. I have them at 34, 29th in offense, 56th in defense. That is very solid overall. Texas at 33. Texas is a team that's just kind of been all over the place. They lose at a 5-point home loss to Iowa State, but then they rebound with a dominating win over West Virginia by almost 40 points. They looked really good in that game. Now West Virginia is not that good of a team, but still, they looked very good. Wasn't even in contention for a single bit of the game. Texas just started off with a bang and didn't look back. Texas is still top 25 in KenPom. They're 20th in offense, 58th in defense. The KenPom numbers look good, but the eye test, not so much in my opinion. But I still have them in the top 40. They're at 33. New Mexico at 32. They lose a home game against UNLV. I think that's 2 home losses now in a row. So that's not great. Hopefully they could bounce back this week. They have a really tough week this week. 2 road games, one against a red-hot Nevada team. We'll get to them in just a second. And then a road game against San Diego State, which is also looking really good. So New Mexico's going to have their hands full with 2 tough conference road games. But New Mexico's still very high efficiency-wise. 39th in offense, 25th in defense. That looks like an upset, waiting to happen. New Mexico, yeah, I don't know. That just looks like a team that you could see an upset from just based off the numbers, but also eye test and how they've been playing. Oklahoma at 31. Oklahoma's still very high in KenPom as well. 53rd in offense, 18th in defense. They have a very nice record at 18-6, but similarly to a lot of teams down here, the KenPom's really high, but when you look at how they've been playing, they really haven't been doing that great. Now, this week they had a really nice week. They had a home win against BYU after losing on the road against UCF, falling off a cliff. But I didn't move them up just because they had a home game against Oklahoma State, who is a bottom feeder in the Big 12. And they only won by 4. Now they're going to have a very, very good opportunity this week. Road game against Baylor tomorrow. And then this Saturday, a home game against Kansas. If they can win one of those, they will definitely move up. But as of right now, I did not move them up. The AP poll has them back in the top 25. I disagree with that. I still got them at 31. Number 30, I got Nevada. I dropped them out for the top 40 for 1 week, and they just make me regret that. They went out there and on the road against Utah State, win by 14, and then beat San Diego State in overtime by 4. They looked really good this week, and they have really upped their tournament resume with those 2 wins. They put themselves in a very good position now. Um, and I mean, yeah, Nevada's looking really good. 72nd in offense, 33rd in defense. That is a little bit low um, in terms of efficiency at 47th overall, but they've looked really good the past 2 games, so I had to bump them up quite a bit. Washington State at 29. This is kind of my sleeper team. They continue to look good and impressed, and they're actually, I think they're pretty high in KenPom. Yeah, 41st overall, 18-6 record, 57th in offense, 31st in defense. Um, Now their strength of schedule is one of the lowest in the country. So, but I don't know. They just went on the road and beat Oregon, who was second in the Pac-12. Now Washington State is second. Um, and I mean, yeah, they're looking really good. 18-6. I'm really looking forward to that road game against Arizona. Not this week, but next week. That's going to be a phenomenal game. Really see what Washington State's made of. But as of right now, I can't put them in the top 25. Colorado State at 28. They 2-0 this week, taking down Boise State and San Jose State. Boise State being the more notable of the 2 wins. Colorado State is 31st in KenPom overall, 25th in offense, 59th in defense. The Rams having a very solid season. Virginia at 27. The Cavaliers continue to win. They're at 19-5. They embarrassed Miami, only allowing 38 points, and then they took down Florida State by 4 on the road. I still don't know how legit this Virginia team is, but they continue to add on to their win streak. The offense is just ridiculously bad at 118 overall, but the defense inside the top 10. I mean, yeah, they're only averaging 65 points per game. But I don't know. They're undefeated at home. They're 19-5, the same record as UNC. They're second in the ACC right now, and they're on an 8-game win streak. So I have to continue to move them up. As much as I may not like them, they're getting it done. So I can't really fault them. Indiana State at 26. They continue to win as well. They're at 22-3 now. The AP poll has them ranked inside the top 25. Good for them. For me, they're just outside it. But next week if they continue to win, they have some teams right there lose. They will definitely be inside the top 25. I would love to have them there, but as of right now, I have them one spot outside of it. They're 18th in offense, 82nd in defense. This is a very good Sycamore team. Watch out for them in March. They are probably the best, non Power Six, not Mountain West team. They're probably the best of that, unless you count like FAU or maybe Memphis. But they're probably better than Memphis. FAU, I don't know, but or maybe they're probably not better than Dayton. But besides those, besides the American, the A10, and the Mountain West, and then obviously the Power Six, they are definitely the best mid-major team. So yeah, good for Indiana State to continue to get it done. Moving into the top 25, we got Utah State here at 25. The Aggies kind of had a weird week. They lose at home by 14 to Nevada, but then they go out and beat Boise State by 19. Utah State, I still don't know how legit this team is. I have them still at 25. They're 43rd in offense, 49th in defense. Overall, very well-rounded team. They don't really shine particularly in too many categories. And they kind of they'll win a game. impressive win and then lose one. So yeah, this kind of teams kind of back and forth on how I think they are. Texas Tech, I have at 24. They beat UCF, but then they lose by 6 on the road against Baylor. This Baylor team is looking really good right now, so I didn't really fault them for that. They have a home game against Kansas. I wouldn't be shocked if they go out there and win that one. So watch out for that game. That could be an upset waiting to happen. And then they also have a road game against Iowa State. So two top 10 teams they play this week. One at home, one on the road. If they can win one of those games, they'll be in very good shape. San Diego State at 23. They are the highest rated Mountain West team I have. They're also the highest rated Mountain West team in KenPom. 47th in offense, 19th in defense. They're looking to have another solid season. And I've said this the past couple weeks. I think they are probably the best team in the Mountain West. They're the best overall team, in my opinion. FAU at 22. They lose on the road against UAB in overtime, I will say. But then they have 2 overtime games this week. Not too great. I didn't really bump them down because a lot of the teams behind them were either going to be new to the top 25 this week or they were going to be moving out of the top 25. So I couldn't really. This is kind of where they had to stay, because 23 through about 20, really 23 through about 30, maybe even 31 if you want to include Oklahoma, could have been ranked inside the top 25. So FAU kind of just had to stay at 22. I did move them down one, but I don't know. This team doesn't look great, in all honesty, looking at it. Eye test wise, they're 11th in offense, 78th in defense. Don't know how legit the Owls are come March. I really like to see them figure it out defensively because as of right now, it's just not there. Same with Kentucky. They're just falling apart right now. They've lost 3 of their last 4. They've lost, they've lost 4 of their last 6. They're on a 3-game losing streak at home. Right now, they are 7th in the SEC. Think about that. They are 7th in the SEC right now. That is not good. That is not good at all. It's looking rough for Kentucky right now. This defense just does not look legit at all. And they continue to let them down. They're 5th in offense, but 124th in defense. Just not going to cut it. I don't want to say this is an upset. This is a team that's going to get upset because they have Coach Calipari, but as of right now, you look at the numbers, you look at the way they've been playing. This does not look like a strong a team that can make a deep run in March Madness. Now, that could definitely change if they figure it out defensively, but as of right now, I just can't get on board with the thought of them making it far in the tournament. Number 20, St. Mary's on a 12-game win streak. They continue to get it done. In dominating fashion, too. They're really not struggling in any of these games, which really, makes me more confident in them. Did you know that they beat Pacific earlier this season? I know this was, like 3 weeks ago. They beat Pacific 76-28. They allowed 28 points in the game. That is just ridiculous. This defense for St. Mary's is really good. And their out of conference resume is really good too. They have a win over Colorado State on the road. They have a close loss to Boise State, who's inside the top 40. Close loss to Utah, who is right there. They did get blown out by San Diego State, but then they have a win over New Mexico, so it's, I don't know, it kind of evens out a little bit. And they obviously beat Gonzaga last week. St. Mary's continues to win and impress. Their defense is just ridiculous. Top 10 in the country. Offense, they're at inside the top 70. So good for the Gales. They continue to get it done. Dayton at 19. They also, they actually don't continue doing it because they lost on the road against VCU in an ugly, low-scoring affair. Neither team put up over 50. I watched the end of that game. Yeah, it wasn't a pretty game at all. Dayton did lose one, but I really couldn't drop them anywhere. So they kind of just stayed put. 24th in offense, 45th in defense, just outside the top 20 overall. The Flyers still looking very solid. I really hope that a collapse is not incoming because the team right up ahead of them is currently experiencing that. They're on a 4-game losing streak. They had a terrible week this week, losing to Michigan and Rutgers. You just cannot have that. Those are two bottom 4 teams in the Big Ten. One of them being the worst team in the Big Ten in Michigan. And yeah, Wisconsin, they just continue to lose, continue to fall down the ranks in KenPom. They're 15th in offense, 40th in defense. Last week I had them at 10. I had them as high as 6, I think, in my top 10 the week before last week. So Wisconsin continues to fall. And I really do think they're a good team. They're just struggling right now. BYU at 17. The analytics continue to love them. I feel like BYU still hasn't played anyone, which is weird. I don't know. I feel like I just don't watch BYU games. I don't know what it is. I mean, they played Baylor, they played Iowa State, they played Texas Tech, they played Houston, they played Texas, they played Oklahoma. I mean, they have played these teams. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I need to watch some more BYU basketball. But yeah, they're 9th in offense, 24th in defense, still very solid. 17 and 6. Yeah, they're doing their thing. They did lose to Oklahoma this week. A lot of teams in this range lost, but I just didn't really have a place to put them. Same with Creighton. They lose on the road against Providence in overtime. Come back with a road win over Xavier. They're still... KenPom always loves Creighton. 22nd in offense, 26th in defense. This is kind of the tier gap here. There's a little bit of a gap. Pretty significant gap, I would say. With the top 15. South Carolina at 15. They're 21 and 3. The AP poll has them at 11. I can't quite do that just because of how low they are in KenPom. But they continue to win, and like I said, if they continue to win, they'll continue to move up. They moved up this week. They're 49th in offense, 50th in defense. Nothing too crazy, but they're getting the wins. So, love to see it from them. Alabama at 14. Alabama did beat South Carolina, so I had them ahead of them. They kind of got embarrassed on the road against Auburn. So, those two teams split the season series, both home teams winning both times. And then they bounced back with a big win over LSU. Alabama, the offense is still the story here. And the defense is getting there. They're kind of going backwards. But Alabama, as of right now, has the number 1 offense in the country by a pretty decent margin. So that is intriguing. But, I got them at 14, and they did lose. So they had to move down a little bit. Illinois at 13, they beat Nebraska. That was last week in overtime. Last week they had a really good week, so they moved up quite a bit. They beat Ohio State on the road and then Nebraska. But this week they only played one game and they lost against Michigan State on the road. Michigan State was needing a win like that though, so I don't really blame Illinois too much for losing that. They're still very high in KenPom, 6th in offense, 41st in defense. And yeah, I got them at 13. Auburn at 12. They beat Alabama, but then they lost on the road against Florida. I don't know. A lot of these teams had good wins this week, but also a bad loss in there, or a win and then a good loss. That was kind of this 11 to 14 range. In Auburn, I don't know. I put them at 12 because they beat Alabama, but then they lost to Florida. I didn't really know what to do with Auburn here. They're still top 5 in KenPom, 16th in offense, 4th in defense. That is really good, and they're 19-5. But when you look at who they played, it's not the best. I mean, it could be worse. But yeah, I don't know. It definitely could be worse, but it's not anything too crazy. I mean, they didn't get their first quad one win until they beat Ole Miss. And and well, now they beat Alabama. But yeah, I don't know. Auburn, I got at 12. Baylor at 11. I'm starting to get on board with Baylor a little bit more. I watched both games that they played this week, and they looked like a very good team. They didn't quit. They kept on playing even when they were down. I mean, they almost came back against Kansas. They had opportunities there. They lose on the road in the hardest place to play by 3. And they had 2 shots to tie the game to send it to overtime. They also beat Texas Tech earlier in the week. So Baylor, and the week before that they beat Iowa State. So Baylor's getting some big wins, looking really good. The past 3 games they've looked really good. I'm liking how this Baylor team's coming around. I haven't been high on them all year, but I'm starting to change my opinion on Baylor a little bit now. Their defense still is struggling a little bit. 7th in offense, but 67th in defense. Them and Alabama, very similar teams. I think Baylor's a little bit more well-rounded, but Alabama does have the better offense by quite a bit. So, you can take what you want. Baylor is 11 spots higher, 9 spots higher in defense, but 6 spots lower in offense. So, by that, if you want to do it that way, Baylor would have the advantage a little bit, but I have them ranked higher too. And they have looked really good in their past 3 games. So credit to Baylor. Um, Jacoby Walters looking really good for them. Ray J. Dennis as well. He's been really good. Moving into the top 10, I have Iowa State making the top 10 for I think the first time in this season. I'm really high on the Cyclones this year. Their defense is elite. They had a very nice week this week, beating Texas and TCU, 2 teams inside the top 40. And Iowa State has moved into the top 10 in KenPom. They're at 9 right now. 45th in offense, 3rd in defense. An elite defense. And, they are looking really good. So good for the Cyclones. Getting a very solid week after losing to Baylor the previous week. Duke at 9. They went 2-0. They didn't really play anyone this week, though. 8th in offense, 32nd in defense. They're looking good, but I couldn't really put them ahead of these top 8 teams. And I honestly think there's another little tier gap here once you get to the top 8. It's... Yeah, I think there's just a little bit of a tier gap once you get to the top 8. I think these are clearly your 1 and 2 seeds right now. I don't think there's really an argument for anyone else. You can't really argue Duke as a 2 seed in my opinion, because when you look at, if you're looking at based on seeding right now, seeding isn't the same as rankings. Seeding is everything combined. Rankings is kind of more how you're doing right now. Because if I had to rank who would win a game, these rankings would shift a little bit. As of right now, the 1 seeds would definitely be the top 3, and then I would probably put Arizona in there, maybe Kansas, maybe UNC. I would say Arizona, though, maybe. And then the 2 seeds would be Marquette, Kansas, UNC, Tennessee. I don't think there's really an argument for Duke to be a 2 seed right now. They could definitely get there, But like I said, I think there's a bit of a tier gap in these top 8 teams. So starting at number 8, we got Tennessee. I put Tennessee behind North Carolina. Um, when you look at their quad one wins, they're honestly not. I think they're like 4-5 in quad one. That does worry me a little bit. They just got blown out by Texas A&M. Now I understand Texas A&M was needing a win, but they just did not look good at all in that game. They didn't look competitive. They're still very solid in KenPom though. 14th in offense, 7th in defense. Um, UNC is one spot behind them in KenPom. Tennessee is at 7, UNC is at 8 in terms of KenPom. UNC at 28th in offense, 6th in defense. These two teams have elite players. Dalton Connect for Tennessee, R.J. Davis for UNC. Obviously, that's not all they have, but UNC did, lose at home this week against Clemson, and then had a really close game on the road against Miami, who I'm not high on at all. But I think I probably should have had UNC ahead of Tennessee last week. But, so I kind of made that a little bit of a correction there. But both teams didn't look great this week. Arizona at 6. They continue to win. They had a very solid week this week, beating Colorado by 20 on the road and then taking down Utah in 3 overtimes. I will say that was a great game. But both on the road, 2 road wins against very solid, Pac-12 teams. 4th in offense, 15th in defense. KenPom loves them. I'm not as high on them, but I'm getting around to Arizona. I feel like they're always a team that just chokes in the tournament. And eye test wise, I don't love them. So, yeah, there was kind of that stretch in January where they would win 2 games and then lose one they shouldn't. But they have a really good resume. They have wins over Alabama, Wisconsin, Duke on the road, Michigan State. I mean, they have the wins. They have a 8-point loss to Purdue, in basically a road game. I know it's a neutral site. They do have a loss to FAU. But yeah, there's kind of that stretch in January where they'd lose games they shouldn't, and that kind of got me off the Arizona train. Starting to get back on it, but they got to continue to impress me and win. They should beat Arizona State this week at home. 5, I got Kansas. This is another team I'm still not sold on yet. It's the depth issue. They don't have any bench players. They only have 3 players who really do much for their team. Hunter Dickinson, KJ Adams, and Kevin McCullough. That's really their whole team as of right now. Now, Kansas this week, they lost on the road against Kansas State in overtime, but then they bounced back with a home win against Baylor. So I didn't move them. You could argue they should be at 6. I could see it. Arizona is definitely deserving of top 5. But I have Kansas at 5 just because of that win over Baylor. I'm still wanting to see more from both Kansas and Arizona. I did have Arizona at 8, so I don't want to jump them up too much. And Kansas did have a very nice win over Baylor. Now we'll see how they play this tonight against Texas Tech on the road. They also play on the road against Oklahoma this week. So 2 road games for Kansas. So we'll see how they look. But like I said, the depth is just a problem. They only have 3 players who average over 10 points per game. Those are really the only players that do anything for them. Efficiency-wise, they're at 14th overall. The lowest out of all the teams. The lowest, yeah, I guess, out of all the teams inside the top 10, which is kind of crazy, but it is true. They are the lowest ranked overall team in this top 10, KenPom-wise. 32nd in offense, 14th in defense. Yeah, now their big 3 is really good, but I've said this before, if they get into foul trouble or have an off shooting night, it's not looking good for them. So I have them at 5 right now, but we'll see how they do. Yeah, they need more depth, is all I'm saying. Marquette at 4. They are getting hot right now. They are on a 7-game win streak. They're getting with up there with UConn at this point. Now they are, 2.5 games back in conference of UConn. They're really the only competition UConn has for first in the Big East. And I don't even think they can get there. Now they play UConn on the road this Saturday. That's going to be a great game. We'll see how they do there, because both those teams are on a huge UConn on a 12-game win streak, Marquette on a 7-game win streak. Marquette is now inside the top 10 in KenPom, 21st in offense, 16th in defense. I've said this plenty of times. If you want to be a true national title contender, you have to be top 20 in offense and defense. Marquette is just outside of doing that. I have them at 4 right now. They're getting hot. Now they have a huge trap game tomorrow on the road against Butler. This is a Butler team who's playing really good right now, and they have it on the road. Butler took down Creighton last week on the road. They beat Providence, who is a team that's on the bubble, desperately searching for wins. They looked pretty decent, actually, on the road against UConn. I really hope Marquette doesn't overlook Butler, because I would not want Marquette to fall if they were to lose to UConn. But yeah, like I said, that is going to be a huge game this Saturday. So, UConn has a big advantage with it being at home. But if Marquette can go in there and win that game, that would be something, to see. So make sure you guys tune into that game. Houston at 3. The Cougars continue to win. They did have a little bit of a scare on the road against Cincinnati this Saturday, but they got the win. They pulled it out. They're 21-3. They're number 1 still in KenPom. Purdue is closing the gap, but Houston still maintains that number 1 ranking, 17th in offense, 1st in defense. The defense is just leagues ahead of everyone else. I've said this before. Now, there is a team that is getting close to them, and that is Rutgers. Rutgers' defense has been very good this season, but as of right now, UConn still has a pretty tight grip on that defense, being number 1 overall. LJ Cryer's doing good for them. Jamal Shed. Those are kind of the guys leading the charge. And Houston continues to get it done. They only have 1 game this week, home against Texas. Hopefully they can win that one. Texas, though, is needing pretty big wins. I honestly think there's another tier gap here with these top 2 teams. I said this last week. This is pretty much 1A, 1B. Both these teams, you could argue, should be number 1. They're both 22-2. They're both looking really good in conference play. Number 2 and number 3 in KenPom. Purdue at 2nd in offense, 13th in defense. UConn at 3rd in offense and 17th in defense. Both inside the top 20. The reason I have UConn ahead of Purdue is I like their coaching a little bit more. I like the way they play a little bit more. Now, Purdue does look a lot better than they did last season, which is crazy. And when you really think about it, UConn honestly does look better than they did in the regular season last season, and last season they won it all. They entered the tournament as a 4 seed last year after struggling heavily to start conference play. Now, we all know what happened, but I don't know. This UConn team, I still don't know if they're better than last year, but they have a lot of depth. They have 5 players scoring over 10 points per game. Tristan Newton's been amazing. Caravan, Donovan Clingan, Cam Spencer. This team is very complete. Same with Purdue. Fletcher Lawyer, Braden Smith, obviously Zach Edey. Lance Jones has been amazing for them. The guard play has really improved, and Zach Edey's still doing his thing. 23 points per game, 12 rebounds, 2 assists and 2 blocks per game. Purdue just blew out Indiana, their rival. They only had 1 game this week. UConn this week took down Butler and Georgetown pretty handily. But yeah, like I said, UConn's got that big matchup against Marquette this weekend. It's going to be a fun one to watch. So yeah, this is that is the rankings for this week's. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you leave a like on it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. We got plenty of content around here: college basketball, college football, NFL, NBA, and MLB. If you're enjoying it, like I said, make sure you subscribe, comment down below what you think of these rankings. And I will probably, I'm not going to guarantee anything, but I will probably see you guys later this week with either an NBA or an NFL video, possibly both. I don't want to guarantee anything, but we will see what we can get to. So yeah, I will see you guys then.